washed up by the sea, is a symbol of continuity, a silent image of our desire for survival, peace, and security.
So thank you so much for coming down, and thanks for the kind applause. So what I'm going to talk for maybe 15 minutes or so about this setup, and then particularly about this module that's right in the center of the setup, which is the disting NT. And then I'll take some questions, anything you want to talk about, making music or the modules or anything at all, really. So yes, this doing this set was made possible even with actually, I hope you can see it's quite a small system, right? So it's just a one row 104 HP, and then a lot of the playing was done on this thing, which is the LinnStrument, which I can also talk about. But really, all of that was possible because of the disting NT being in the system, and it's doing a lot in there. But I found it's all pretty manageable, which is maybe surprising. So it was basically doing most of the voices. In addition, there's this Mutable Instruments Platts that was doing just one voice throughout. And this Mannequin's Just Friends that wasn't actually doing that much. There's a little bit of a chord stab every now and then. And then in terms of effects, I've got this mimeophone that was doing all the delay duty, and a reverb at the end of chain here, which is the FX aid. So pretty much everything else in terms of sound and effects was being done within the disting NT. So that many of you, I'm guessing quite a few of you will know all this, but the NT works by having this kind of stack of algorithms that are running, and they can talk to each other. They can talk to each other with inside the system with audio and CV, and it also has a lot of inputs and outputs. So you can see I'm using quite a few of the inputs here and outputs as well, and it's got basically 12 inputs and 8 outputs with this expander as well. Okay, so that's the boring technical stuff. I also was doing some sequencing from the monome teletype and just controlling that with this grid. But there was some sequencing being done inside the disting NT as well. So that's the kind of setup. Disting NT is getting MIDI from the LinnStrument, and the LinnStrument is an MPE controller, so it can send MIDI from basically each finger that you put on the surface, can send a whole stream of information. So I can just give you a quick, I mean, you heard a lot of it, but basically when I press down, obviously it's here, it's sensing where I'm pressing, unsurprisingly, and that's producing notes, and it's arranged in a stack of fourths, so it's arranged a bit like a bass guitar. But the other thing it can do is it can sense continuous pressure, so I can swell and release, and vibrato, so I can, and it can slide as well. And on top of that, it can also sense forward and backward motion on the same row, so I can go. So it's throwing out all of this information. It's doing that for every finger. So what we need is something that can take that information and turn that into something useful. So the NT has a bunch of its algorithms can process this MPE data and turn it into something useful. So all you were hearing was just basically one algorithm running one preset. I wasn't changing the sounds at all. So this was this wavetable, and if I can show you, so you can see this curve here is the sound that this synth will make. But when I press it, it'll be delayed probably. Oh no, maybe not. As I move my finger up and down, the wave shape is changing. So I've set it up so that that position controls that parameter of the synth, but it could do all sorts of other things. And I didn't used to have this control, obviously, at some point, and I was doing all of my music with sequencing. And I can't tell you how transformative it is to have a connection between your fingers and the sound producing machine that's so fluid. Like the feeling of being able to, you know, just do the tiniest sound like that and then lean into it. It's lovely. It's very addictive. And the fact that you can move different things at the same time, so you can go. That sort of thing where you can send different notes in different directions. So that's one of the things that the NT made it very, very easy for me to do in this kind of modular world. So that's one of the sounds I was making with that. I'm going to talk you through a couple of other things that I've been doing, and then we'll get into some questions. So that's a wavetable sound, but there's another sound that I used in there that's a bit bonkers. Right, so This, by the way, is one of the ways you can control the MT, because there's a lot of stuff going on in there. So one of the ways that you can control it is by exposing parameters within different algorithms onto a screen like this. This is called the performance page. So you can say, in my live set, I'm only going to change these few parameters, and I'll bring them out onto the performance page. And there's 3 of them visible at any one time. And then each of these 3 knobs controls those parameters. So it's kind of really quick and immediate to change things. Takes a bit of setup in advance. So I'm just going to turn off that synth and turn on this other one, which I've got on a different MIDI channel. So this is that like that sound. Now, some of you are probably modular synth people, my guess. So some of you will have heard of rings, mutable instruments rings. So this is actually mutable instruments rings. It probably doesn't sound much like it. I'm going to do one other thing as well. So this is mutable instruments rings. So it's going into a distortion inside the MT. And I've also got some of the MPE controls mapped to some of rings parameters, and particularly the pressure. Normally rings, you send it a trigger, and it rings out. And the length of time it rings out is one of the parameters in rings. And that you sort of set that in advance. But I've got that controlled by the pressure. So if I play it lightly, I get this really staccato sound. If I press it and then press into it, it just rings out. Just a second, I'll turn that's off. So, so I can. So I can go from that like staccato guitar playing to the other thing, another little tip here. I was so happy when I realised I could do this. In fact, the reality is I was so happy when I realised I could ask Oz to add this. So I don't have a very good sense of rhythm. But I want it to be able to play in time to the delay, which you heard there. So basically, you can't not play this in time at the moment because it's all in time. And so there's one of the algorithms in here is a MIDI temporal quantizer. So you can send it a clock, and then a MIDI note comes in and it waits till the next clock and then sends it out again. So I've got that on one MIDI channel, but I can change the MIDI channel, which is like this is maximum cheating. Let me see if I can remember which MIDI channel it's on. It's all out of time. So that's just kind of that's just one MIDI channel change away to get that. While I'm here, I'll show you how easy it is to change the sound. So there's rings. What I'll do is I'll also turn down the distortion, which is completely bonkers at the moment. So.
Simon, we can get your hand round the back. There we go.
Look at that. Ergonomic. So that's with the distortion off. But what I'll do is I'm going to change the settings on rings. Change it to, let's do that. So you will probably recognize, some of you will recognize that as a sort of ringsy sound. But again, I can set up this page, which is the MPE controls, and I can do something like, let's say, I'll change my pressure. Let's see. Oh no, let's do position. So I'm going to change MPY, so that's this, to structure. This is going to sound fucking mental. Actually, it's actually quite nice. So what that's doing is it's changing which strings are activated in the rings model. So that's the sort of thing you can do quite easily just by in the NT controls, and those are the sort of things. I'm just going to do something else just for fun as well. Whack that up, and I'll change this to yet another. Let's try. Go back to this. So you can do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do on one of the kind of most well-known modular synth algorithms out there, which is rings. The next thing I just wanted to talk you through is an algorithm that got added to the NT that wasn't in the kind of disting family before. The name of it might give you a hint of like who was helping Oz come up with it. So this is the Curbinator, which is it's an effect that basically takes a recording of audio. It's continually recording into an audio buffer, and then it's playing back slices of that buffer, recent audio buffer. But it does it probabilistically, so it has these various probabilities associated with it. It's like how likely is it to play a slice, whether it's going to play it forward or backwards, whether it's going to pitch it up, how high it's going to pitch it up or down, whether it's going to glide, and so on. Each of those is controlled with a probability. So I'll just stick it on so you'll get a sense of what it does. So if I... It's quite subtle. Oh, there it goes. So what? Yeah, I'll show you the screen next. So this is the audio that's being recorded in, and these little tick marks are the slices that it's pulling out of that. So it's doing it just regularly in this case. So as I play in, so that's doing it completely randomly, which is sometimes really nice. And I tend to have one of those sitting at the end of the chain, always ready to turn it up if I want something kind of ear candy-ish. And just to be surprised. But you can also get it so that it's repeatably random. So what that means is that you can set it so that when you send it a signal, it starts doing its random dice rolling. And then you send it that signal again, it repeats exactly the same set of random choices that it did before. It doesn't matter how long, it could be days long, but normally it's a bar. So why is that nice? Well, that allows you to do things like have rhythms that are repetitive and kind of make some kind of sense. So what I'll do is I'm just going to pull up, make sure my bass is turned off. Okay, sorry. So remember that sound that was in there? So it sounds like it's quite complicated. There's a lot going on. But I'm just going to pull down. So firstly there's a delay. So I'll take the delay out. And then there's actually two carbonators, one of which is that random one. And the other one is doing a repetition. So this is the actual rhythm that's going in. It's really boring. But I can put in this one that is doing a repeating pattern. I think it's every 2 bars. By the way, these bars are in 5/4, so it's slightly confusing. So if you listen, you can hear it's repeating, right? And the nice thing about that is that you can, so you can take that repeating pattern. Where did I hide the parameter for this? And you can mutate it. So you can mutate it slightly or a lot. So at the moment, this mutate is saying 28%. Let's take it to just a little off. It's actually slightly different, but not massively different. But I can take it much further away. And now it's doing a different kind of pattern, right? But I can go right back to that 28. And it'll be back as it was before. And that pattern of repeating randomness can basically go forever. So I tend to have that kind of thing going on with a rhythm pattern. And actually, I realise it's maybe slightly easier to hear if I put the kick back in. So I'll put the kick back in. Five/4 kick is the best. And then I'll put the other carbanator back in as well. This is the completely random one. And then the delay. And because that carbonate, one of them is taking the effects of everything, I can also play on top, and it'll be affected in the same way. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to talk you through. So, any questions?
I couldn't help but notice that this thing is upside down in the housing. But I'm impressed that the screen's inverted. I didn't know that you could do that.
Yes, this is the one true way you should have your disting. Anyone who says otherwise is wrong. No, there are disadvantages. Like, I thought it would be bad to have it this way up because you'd have to reach over it. But actually, it turns out it's fine. I like to be able to know that the cables are up here and they're not in the way. If it was the other way around, I definitely need to have the case this way, otherwise I wouldn't be able to see the screen. So this is a really good way if you like having your case flat. I like the case flat because I found I like to. Otherwise, it feels a little bit like I'm sitting behind a laptop, which I've been wanting to get rid of. And so when I used to have the case up like that, I'd always sit sideways onto the audience, but it still feels a bit like I'm doing work.
Also, the audience can see.
Yeah, so the audience can see the wires, and that's the best bit about modular. Yeah, you don't want any of this stuff. Right, yeah. So that is an option to flip the display. You have to sort of. There is a little bit of a mental gymnastics you do when you realise that the buttons are in different places, but the help screen updates, the little thing that pops up and tells you where you are. So go home and turn your distings upside down, folks. Or if you don't have one, buy one, then turn your screens upside down. Oz gave me a lift here, so I'm just throwing him a bone.
My other question is, how did you produce the chord sequence for the Max Richter?
So that, yes, that's a good question. So so on the Max Richter piece, the chords and there's a kind of alternating line. So those were both coming from a MIDI player. I actually transcribed the score into MIDI on, I think it was Ableton Live, and then put the MIDI file onto the SD card. And then the nice thing is you can separate out the channels, so the different parts of the score. And so the chords are being done with actually the Poly FM algorithm, doing a kind of DX7 organ sound, which I like. The alternating part was actually coming out of the Platts. So that was coming out as CV. And there's one other little trick, which I was so happy when I figured out. In addition to having no sense of rhythm, I have a brain that whenever I stand in front of people, it's like there's a plug and it gets pulled out and all of the contents just flows out onto the floor. So there's no way I could remember a score. So I was thinking, well, I'll just have the score on the table, but yeah, that wasn't going to work. So what I actually ended up doing is the lead line for that, even though it's very simple, just as a kind of thing to stop me panicking, I coded that up in MIDI as well, and then shifted it left by half a bar, and then had it coming out into an algorithm called PolyCV here, that doesn't do anything. It's not doing anything at all, except that these polysynth algorithms show you what note it's playing. So this showed me what note was coming, I would have to play in half a bar. So that's what and then I was playing those notes on
Could
the
you fire up
instrument.
the MIDI player, and
Yeah.
even if it's with the wrong sounds?
Yeah. It won't be, well, it might be. Okay,
The
so
MIDI player looks cool because it reminds me of Pro 24 on the Atari ST.
okay, well, I'll get it out for you. So that's the MIDI player, and it's actually still playing. So start it again, and I'll have to put on the Poly FM. Turn off the delay, and I will need to wait a sec. I think turning off the poor Max. So that's the MIDI player, and it's got all the channels, and you just choose the file off the. That's enough of that. Choose the file off the SD card and play it. So that's good for those kind of longer pieces that you might want to do on there. It's always a bit of a crowd pleaser, that one at the end. Yeah.
How do you initialize the MIDI file being played? Does it just take a trigger input to like start the whole thing?
You can do. So there's a play control here. So I have that mapped onto the performance page. Right. So I just turn play on. But you could also, any control in any parameter on any of the algorithms, you can control from CV, you can control it internally, or you can control it from MIDI, or you can control it from the performance page. So you could have a trigger going in and starting it from that. Yeah. You could even do crazy things like you could set up a sequencer that inside the NT that would fire off controls to start and stop MIDI players. So like once you get that the hang of the kind of internal signal flow, it's a really elegant system. there's I actually do all of my NT programming on the screen, but you can. There's different ways of doing it. You can do it on a computer attached by MIDI to. You can actually expose all of the parameters and all of the algorithms. You can do it from a phone, from an iPad, or whatever. But I find doing it on the screen, I don't know, maybe I'm just stubborn. I like doing everything just there. And it's like, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy just to scroll up and down and actually see what's going on. So you see these little lines. These are the buses that the signals flow down, and you can see which ones are doing things by these indicators on them at any one point. And I don't know, how many buses do you have now? Like 40?
64 in
64 buses. So there's like pretty much, you can set up all sorts of things with that pretty easily. Other questions? Yeah.
The tempo quantizing, how sympathetic is that if you're, so obviously you were saying that it'll wait until the next clock. What happens if you're kind of dragging in such a way? How does it like work out? How closely can it get it to the beat that you're looking for?
So it's hard quantizing. So it can't do time travel yet. That's a next version feature. But I mean, you could potentially you could say you could have
backwards.
Yeah,
And then
you could decide, you could think, that's good enough. So you could have a kind of slop value around it if you wanted. But at the moment, no. It's basically like a sample and hold for MIDI. Is one way of thinking about it.
I suppose when I've tried to do things like that, I've ended up somehow missing the beat that I was going for, and it's ended up triggering
you need
beat after. Because you always have to be almost like a little bit ahead.
That's right.
Yeah, you
for
would
that to
have
work.
to be.
So for the sorts of things I'm doing, that's okay. So actually, I will tend to. There's a thing I do with the band that I'm in with Oz called The Shell, where I do we play with the drummer, and he's playing to a click track. So everyone's sort of locked into a tempo, and then I'll do a sequence just with my fingers. And because of the way the quantizing is work, sometimes it's going to miss and get it on a beat later, and I love that sound. So it's essentially it's an isorhythmic pattern that falls out naturally. So you've got a sequence of notes that's continuing as it is, but the time between each note is sometimes one beat, sometimes two. And I just lean into that, basically. Yeah. It's a nice effect. I should say as well, the clocks, I wasn't actually using the internal clock for that, so that the clock can come from somewhere else. It was coming from Teletype in this case. But there's a clock inside the NT which has like really like crazy amount of parameterization on the swing, so you can do quite complicated swung clocks with that. But yeah.
I suppose what I was trying to get at is if the clock that it was syncing to was maybe lagging ever so slightly, then you might, I guess then it would just always sound.
It would always sound out, yeah. I mean, you could like reasonably, if you knew when the clock was going to be, or if the disting knew when the clock was going to be, let's workshop an algorithm. Then you could just say, well, within that window, if it's before. If it's just after.
Yeah, you're right, you can't pull it backwards in time.
Can't pull it backwards in time,
No.
but you could just leave it. You could say, I'm willing to allow this amount of sloppiness. And then you could have a zone around a clock pulse where it said any events that happen in that zone stay as they are, and any notes outside of that get dropped to the next. Well, they don't get dropped, they get moved to the next.
They could do.
Slice. Could do, but
That would really force you to play in time, wouldn't it?
I'm not going to
You
play
had
that.
to play
all
on the clock.
disappear.
But yeah, that would be possible.
You could just also get a score at the end of the night. Okay, well,
Yeah.
other questions? Yeah.
I was going to ask if inputs can be made outputs.
No,
You can't change the laws of physics.
no, that's
My
right.
actual question is, given that this was launched like October 2024, did you ever see as the creator it becoming what it is now?
I mean, it's definitely been a work of continuous change and collaborative change from the community feedback. I never intended initially to do an API for it, so that kind of came out of, well, about 6 months in, I guess. And having seen what people are able to do with that, I've kind of leaned into that quite heavily, because it means that other people can do stuff that I therefore don't have to find the time to do. No, so I mean, some things were completely not part of the original plan. A lot of it is exactly as I intended it to be. So the fundamental workflow of how the algorithms flow and how the parameters map to the buttons is exactly as it was always planned to be. And I'm really happy that that stood the test of time. But, so yeah, yes and no, I guess is the answer. Certainly really pleased with the community that sprung up around it, and how helpful that's been. And
Yeah, the Discord is pretty amazing, actually.
yeah,
So
I think there's a lot of lurkers who don't chirp up as often as the vocal folk,
yeah,
but the vocal folk more than make up for them.
yeah. I haven't got so into the plugins. That's something I really want to get more stuck into. So that there's a lot. I don't know how many are there, but there's a lot of algorithms that other people have written that you can load into here.
Yeah. Or other open source stuff that people have ported in as plugins.
Yeah. So that's pretty amazing. So like I haven't like I think there's an Elements, isn't there? Someone's
Elements was done. A few of the mutable ones I can't do myself because they're GPL licensed, but they can be plugins.
There's
The
grids.
Bafako Honoroy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was open source, but somebody ported that. That was cool.
Yeah, so it does feel like it's endlessly new treats are getting added. I think maybe that's something to consider. Like a lot of these big open platforms, like for a long time I was really into Norns, and I had a Norns. I don't know if any of you know that. And that's just endless new kind of cool musical things happening. And you would go, oh, that sounds great. And you put it in and you play for it a while and go, that's amazing. Let's do the next one. And it was a bit like, I don't know, I got some of the feeling that you get watching Instagram Reels, right? Where you're just like, suddenly, it was 10 years later and you never made any music. It was a bit like that. And I feel like one of the things I quite like about the NT is that what it comes with is plenty. So every now and then I think, oh, I'll just go and install loads and loads of plugins from the community, and then I think no, because I'll stop making music. But what it has enabled me to do is basically have this incredibly portable setup. I mean, I can nearly carry it with one bag, and it's just got one plug to switch it on, which has made like doing practices and gigs much easier. Yeah. When Oz first told me about that he was making it, I was thinking, oh right, so it's going to be 2 disting EXs, right? So just follow the same pattern. And he was like, no. And I was like, shit, that would be great. But it's way better than that. Yeah.
I actually had loads of questions.
Keep going. Keep going.
The MPE.
Yeah.
When I'd heard of MPE, but whenever I'd heard about it, I just thought, I don't know what I would use that for.
Yeah.
But seeing you use it, I can start to get like why that would be cool. But have you used any other interfaces beyond the LinnStrument?
Yeah, so before this, I had, so I also, for a little while, used the Launchpad, which isn't MPE, but it does have channel pressure, I think, or whatever that's called these days. And then I also had a Ableton Push 3, which is MPE. and they're good. But when I got this, I was kind of like, oh shit, this is so much better.
Is it just more responsive, or?
Actually, the push 3 is really nice. Like the pads are really nice, and moving over the pads. So the pads are quite big compared to this, and each one is essentially like a little XY controller. So that kind of thing is nice and possibly more controllable than this, particularly this direction. But they're big, and so ultimately with the push, what you end up feeling that you need to do is put it into scale mode, which is where you choose the scale and then only good notes from the scale are there. That feels like a great idea, but not doing that and just having all of the notes is so much better, and it's so much easier to do chords and move around in it. And also, like I play in a band, and if the band says, right, well, or Oz says, well, you know, what, give me a G sharp or something, I'm like, oh no, fuck, where's the menus? Whereas here I can just do it. Yeah, so I will say that you can do a lot without MPE though. So if you use a keyboard that has aftertouch, a lot of these kind of things would work, right? And I think maybe what I would suggest is you can go into the MPE synth, the polysynths, and map those modulation parameters to things like velocity and pressure, and they'll work. And you may actually get a lot of the way you want to get to without splashing out on another controller. I used to play guitar, so this layout makes so much more sense to me than a keyboard. I don't understand how people play keyboards. Whereas this is just like, I know, you know, a minor triad, it's always going to look like that, you know, wherever it is. And so that's, yeah. I'm so ready to answer more questions. Also from you, but anyone else?
What's missing from the disting AD? What do you want to see next?
I have a list, which I share to Oz whenever I think he's in a patient mood. I feel like the MPE implementation could go even further. But mainly that's because there's some like slight weird quirks about the LinnStrument. So, okay, if you have ever listened to or seen someone play the what's it called again?
Chromophone?
No.
No.
The
Continuum?
Continuum, right? The Hack and Continuum. That's just amazing, and it's £1 million. But the reason that works so well is because there's this very, very tight relationship between the synth engine and the parameters that are coming in off the control surface. And I think we're really close to that in here. But I think there's a few more things that could be done that we're trying to prototype, and it turns out it's really hard. But I think stuff with more control. The other thing I said to Oz the other day is more physical modelling, because the physical modelling at the moment is like rings and things like that. But equally, you can just report stuff. I mean, bunch of people on the forums who are doing stuff with it, coding with it, appear to be just using Claude code, AI, to do the coding. So there's people who say they've not coded music plugins before who are contributing. It's fucking terrifying.
So, when writing the plugins, what format do the plugins, or what kind of language?
They're written in C.
C, right.
Yeah.
And are they VSTs?
No.
No.
No. I mean, you could very easily take a VST and port it.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, so some people have done just that sort of thing. There is also another interface using a language called Lua, which is kind of a bit easier. That's something I'm going to get into soon, because I think that's good for doing kind of generative sequences and so on. So the teletype is what I've been using to do a lot of that, like generative sequencing things. Just little scripts basically to say, okay, I want it to do this kind of thing. So that could all be done, I think, very easily in Lua. So you don't have to build a huge, massive plugin. You can just run it in Lua, and there's a console, isn't there? So you can do that.
There's
what
also
would you add to it?
What would I add to the NT? Well, I've got a list. I don't know. Probably some more DSP stuff. A lot of the stuff I'm adding to the NT tends to be stuff that I want to use myself, which has always been the expert sleeper's way, particularly the disting way. It is what I personally need. And at the moment, my disting NT is on the floor in a pedal board with a saxophone connected to it. So a lot of the stuff I do is because that's what I need. Yeah, and I have a tendency towards kind of drony ambient music, so there's lots of delays and loopers, and my favourite algorithm at the moment that I put in was this freeze algorithm, just to make a big static pad. But yeah.
And you've just added time stretching, haven't you?
Yes, for the sample playback. Added some time stretching things. Somebody on the forum suggested that. I thought, well, that sounds like fun. Let's do that.
I think since the early days of having a whole bunch of Mark IVs in my case, I always get this feeling like, if I think to myself, can the disting do something? The answer is nearly always yes, or if you ask in the right kind of intriguing way on the Discord, then a couple of hours later it seems to do it. So yeah, there's been a few amazingly fast turnarounds when someone was asking about additive synthesis, and they were talking about this was in the Discord, and wanting to code their own additive synthesizer, and I think it was the next day.
Well, I remembered that I wrote one 20 years ago as a VST, so I ported it, and there it was in the NT the next day. So yeah, so now there's an additive synthesizer in there. Yeah, a few little effects and stuff I want to get in there. I don't know, it feels like it's kind of solidifying a little bit at this point. It's like there's a lot. I still have an intention to go through the list of everything every disting has ever done and make sure that it's all in the NT, and I know there's a few like niche things that aren't yet. But yeah, it feels like it does. I mean, it does a hell of a lot. It could do more. But also, you know, focusing on things like the performance page that Simon showed, that was a kind of a late addition to take everything that's been there and make it so you can actually interact with it more easily, which I think is important as well as people start playing out live with these things. So you're not, by the time you've got 40 algorithms there with 50 parameters each, you don't want to deal with that in a live situation.
And there's a lot of really nice design touches with that. So it appears as a block like another algorithm, but it's always both at the top and the bottom. So so wherever you are, if you're like, you just turn the dial whichever direction, doesn't matter, and you're at the performance page, which I just think is a really, really nice touch. And the way it works is, you scroll along the bottom and you've got 10 pages of 3 controls each.
Yeah. And I added knob recorders to that, so if you want to just like wibble something and have it repeat, you can just like turn the knob and it'll keep doing it over and over and over. So
you can do a whole load, and since these can also be macro controls, they can be controlling a whole load of other things in your preset.
Yeah, that actually made me remember. Sorry, I got in first.
Yeah,
what one of my other questions was about presets. See how you were editing on the fly there? I take it that's not changing your presets as you're doing that. That's just you could reload.
Yeah.
everywhere
Oh,
and
yeah,
go
yeah.
right
Yeah,
back
yeah,
to it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
you say so. You have to manually
Manually
save.
yeah.
The one thing that it remembers is if you're in a particular preset and you switch it off and switch the case back on, it reloads that preset, which I think is really good because quite quickly you end up with this massive this SD card full of presets. Well, my way of using it has been to just craft one preset that I use for everything over time and just tweak it. And I basically have things that I switch on and off. So see these grayed out things, those are synths that aren't currently using any CPU, but I can switch them back on. And so that way I can just think of all the things. I might even have multiple copies of the same synth, but with different parameters set up for different sounds. And then I just switch between them live. So that's the way I use it. Whereas I think you have much more sensibly a preset for each song.
That's the way I operate.
Yeah.
Usually. But that means you have to remember to load presets between songs
Yeah.
and maybe name them appropriately.
Can you continue playing when you
No,
swap between?
no. If you load a preset, it basically shuts the whole thing down and starts up again.
But that's why the bypass thing is so good, because I was switching in and out all the way through that set. I was switching in and out different different synths. If I put them all on at once, it would hit the CPU limit. So I was just switching them on and off, and everything else keeps going. So yeah, that's how you manage the CPU. But honestly, is that you can do a lot simultaneoily, obviously.
I broke it having too many flats at the same time.
Yeah, so Platts can, especially the Platts mode that I like, which is the harmonic oscillator, that's expensive. But yeah, you can specify them to be not polyphonic or whatever, yeah.
What was your question, John?
Would you ever consider use of configurable firmware? So you said it's going to keep getting more and more added to it, so that kind of maximalist element. What if you're somebody who just likes a couple or gets a bit overwhelmed with so much to choose from, option paralysis? Or would that be too much? Like, almost like kind of quick list. You can say, I want to load all these.
Yeah.
Create firmware.
I'm not sure I'd ever do that, but I could certainly see like a favourites mechanism. So you could say, make your own list of things that you might like, but.
So I want to see how many so if we go to add algorithms, so there's there's a lot of algorithms, but on the other hand, oh God, there really is a lot. But there are these tags. It's got a tag system as well, so you can go, Jesus, how many have you put in here?
Right.
So yeah, you can say just instruments or just effects, and so on. So you could have a favourites there, presumably.
Yeah.
Another thing for you to do.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that actually was a suggestion. When I first that tagging system was quite a late addition. I assumed I would do a favourites then, but then nobody really asked for it, so I just left it like it is now.
But wouldn't you then have option paralysis about which
are your favourites?
favourites?
Can you let Simon?
I don't know. I would just, if it was me, I would just ignore the ones I wasn't interested in, but I don't. Maybe my brain works differently to other people's.
Anything else? Yeah.
Has the product, like the hardware itself, has that remained the same since you released it? Or have you
The shipping PCB is PCB version 1.0.
How did you decide how to structure it and that?
Actually, this is the prototype, isn't it? Still.
Is it?
Yeah.
There you go.
It's got the
Yeah,
wrong
I mean,
screws on it.
literally, I made the prototype. It was fine, so we built them. so yeah.
Yeah. So this is board 00001 in here, I think.
You can bring up, unless you've had to replace it, but you can bring up the menu and do the
Oh,
about.
how do you, can you?
About.
Um,
There you go.
where?
Under MISC, about.
Serial number 0001.
There you go.
You're not getting it back.
Yeah, so I mean, it is. What was the question? How did I come up with this design?
It's just I guess the software you can change over time with the hardware you've got.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
It's a lucky guess, wasn't it?
I've been doing this a while, right? So I guess I felt that would be an appropriate number of knobs and buttons to have. I think I guess it was, what was it formed by? I knew I needed a bigger screen than I'd had before, so I got the biggest screen I could find, and that was the size of the screen. So that did take the width of the module, which then grew slightly wider to accommodate the USB port, because that didn't originally have USB on the front, but I thought actually that would be quite handy. So it got a little bit wider, and I did do some kind of, not full electronic things, but like panel mock-ups where I think I had, so I did do the thing where it was kind of 2 disting EXs, so I actually had 4 encoders and 4 knobs. And that was way too densely packed, and you just couldn't get your fingers around them. But yeah, I spread them out until I could actually comfortably get my fingers all the way around the knob, like obscuring the camera. So that was that. Yeah, and I guess I just felt that would work. Yeah, once with the, I can't drive this because it's upside down, but.
You really can't.
Oh, no, what have you done? No, not that one. How do you get back to the screen with all the parameters with this upside down thing? No, you see, even that one, that's the one. Yeah. So this for me was the kind of, this makes all the sense. So you have one knob to do pages of things, and one knob to do things within inside the page, and then one knob to twiddle the value at the end. And that once that's solidified, everything else kind of followed, really. And then as many inputs and outputs as would fit on that panel. Again, I think I originally had more, but then you just couldn't. So, because I use tendrils, right angle cables. And if you get those too densely packed, you just literally can't get them in, the ones kind of in the middle. And the ones, cable Simon's got would work. So that got spaced out a little bit. But yeah, it was a bit of a punt, I guess, because until I had the hardware, I couldn't really do the firmware.
And I think one of the things I really like is, and it's the same with the Mark IV, right, and the EX, is this combination of a encoder and really quite, not loose, but low friction pots, which I really like. The pots are just, they feel great. And that combination is very, very helpful, I think, in here. And it has the best soft take-up algorithm, which came from Mutable. Where especially when you're on the performance page, you really want it. A normal soft take-up, you have to turn the dial until it hits the actual value, and then it grabs it. But this, this is on minus infinity, and this isn't quite at 0. But so if you turn it up, you want it to go up. You don't want it to do nothing. And if you turn it down, you want it to go down. So the pots always will turn. If you turn them that way, the value goes down, and if you turn that way, the value goes up. But it does it in such a way that the parameter chases the pot and then it hits it at a certain point. Sounds complicated, but it's just super intuitive. It always sort of weirdly feels like, even though you've changed parameters, the pots are in the right place. It's crazy. It's just little touches like that, I think, is I really appreciate in the design of it.
There we go.
I'm doing my professorly looking over the top of my glasses. Any questions?
I guess this might be another feature request which you just brought to my mind in terms of what you're saying.
Okay.
The idea maybe having templates for algorithms where, so if you go into the mixer every time, you don't want everything to be minus infinity. You might want to come in with...
So you can save a preset that is just that one algorithm,
Yeah.
and then if you want to use it, you just tack that into your preset. So yeah, you basically have
So it
that.
basically has that, yeah.
Right, okay.
It's just not called
It's an
that.
education then.
Yeah, no, but it is not an obvious feature, because when I was added that, I was like, why would anyone want that? And then I realised, oh, well, that's templates, basically, yeah. So you just add a preset onto your current preset, and you can just save all of those. Yeah, yeah.
And because that's the preset, it's not limited to just one thing. So if you have like a end of chain, well, the end of chain is completely different. That's another whole system. But say if you have a particular combination of reverb and delay you like, you could save that as a file that just had the reverb and delay on it. And then if you want to load those in, you just add that into the preset.
That's a documented feature, yes?
It certainly is.
Yes.
The manual's quite long, as you've probably noticed. Or
I read it all.
I'm glad you read it all. I'm glad someone read it all. I think the approved practice nowadays is just to feed that into Claude and get Claude to summarize it for you.
It's very confidently wrong about a lot of NT features, I found.
Yeah. Any more? Doesn't have to be about the NT.
Anyone, I mean, I think we've got a bit of time. I don't know if we have actually, I just said that. But if anyone wants to come up and have a go at the LinnStrument, because I know I'll put it on that nice sound rather than this scary sound, and you can have a shot. But before I stop saying anything, there's a couple of things. If you're ever through in Edinburgh, we have a monthly-ish live music night called Wavetable. Coming up it's a week on Saturday. We have one of my favourite all-time acts is on tour, on a world tour, and they're coming to Edinburgh, and they're playing at our night, and they're the Passepartout duo, who they're incredible percussionists, but they also play electronic instruments, and they invented an instrument called the chromaplane. So they built it and invented it, and they're coming with their instruments and their amazing percussion playing. So that's Saturday the 6th of June. Come through. There's still some tickets left. So go to wavetable.info if you're interested in that. Also, Oz and I are in a band with an amazing drummer. The band's called The Shell. And we're playing the 26th of June in a place called Pianodrome in Edinburgh. So if you like saxophone, synths and drums, and we're also playing there with Sonia Kilman, who's amazing. So please come to that. The tickets are on sale for that. We also have some albums out there. So my album, Ahoy the Early Light, and the Shell album, and one of Oz's many, many amazing albums. So they're for sale there. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you to Signal Sounds for hosting.
Yes.
Thank you.